Awesome. Go ahead.
All right, hang on, let me do the slideshow. All right, so I'm Adrienne and I'm here with Linnea, and last time our team was here was last summer, and it was me and Rebecca Perel, who has since taken a position outside the city. So Linnea is our new project lead. So she and I will go over kind of a recent update of what's going on with this project. Last time we were here, we gave an overview of the work to date on this project, which has been the last 3 years. We especially summarized what happened during the phase 2 engagement and work, which was focused on the public space and the street layout. And then we also gave an overview of the upcoming phase 3 work, which is focused on identifying priorities around development on the new Nicollet site. Before we get started, I just want to ask that we not share the materials that you see here today, just in the sense that we have an open house planned a week from today, next Tuesday, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it worked well for us to come to you on this date to share these materials. But we're focusing our efforts on getting the full report out. This is kind of an overview a week from today. So thank you. A quick look at what we'll be talking about. We'll just remind folks of what this project is, and then go over what we've done with the phase 3 work so far, which includes the engagement that we did last summer and fall. And then we will go over what we call the development framework, which is a document that will guide development in the future. And that includes development guidelines, a development program, and then implementation and phasing. As a quick reminder, this is the new Nicollet project, which is over there at Nicollet and Lake. We have, the city now owns the 10 acres that are there, and the street will be rebuilt through the site there from Cecil Newman down to Lake Street. And the rest of the site will be developed to serve the needs of the folks in the area. A quick review of the project so far. We've got the phase 1, which was 2022 to 2023, where we asked about priorities overall for the project, like overall goals, desired outcomes from the community. And then I already talked about phase 2, which was 2023, 2024. And now we are almost here at the end of phase 3, which is talking about development sites. And then I can get into next steps after that. So phase 3 in general, you'll see here, phase 2 identified that the public park would be here in this northeast corner. The street would be going through here, and then we have these developable areas here. So the phase 3 was working with the community to identify what are the goals for these future buildings on the site, understanding market forces. And Linnea and I will go into that in more detail in just a moment. First, let's talk about the engagement that happened this last summer and fall. We had 14 different engagement events, including talking with you all, other neighborhood groups. We talked with developers, different focus groups. We had an open house, and revisited many of the groups that we've talked with over the last 3 years. Again, to talk through some of these ideas. In terms of what we talked about during these engagement events, we shared a likely scenario, a development scenario with the public, and this was based, which you see here on the left, this was based on a market study, past engagement, and city priorities. And basically the idea was, this is what we think the market could possibly develop on this site. And then we also asked for help then. And sorry, we've got kids at home. Linnea and I both have kids, so they will make appearances. And we also asked for help prioritizing what we call reach elements. And reach elements are development outcomes that go above and beyond what we think a market could provide on its own. And so those would require additional government tools, additional resources or incentives in order for us to make those successful. And these reach elements you see listed here on this graph, we asked folks to help us identify which ones were the most important to them. Where should we put our efforts and put our efforts when we are going into this development phase. So as you'll see, we broke down the results here in terms of orange is showing the results from the 4 focus area neighborhoods. And then blue is showing, overall what we heard from the survey. And you can see that comparatively, they're very similar. And from top to bottom here, you can see that enhanced public space still, and that goes kind of above and beyond what was identified during phase 2 was important. Expanded housing diversity, attracting a grocery store to the area, sustainability, and then more like small storefronts for small businesses. Those are kind of the top ones. We can always go back to any of these slides at the end. We want to make sure we have enough time for questions. So I'm going to pass it on to Linnea for these next slides. Thanks, Linnea.
Yeah, thank you, Adrienne. So one of the culminations out of the community engagement process was that we established these development guidelines, and these describe how we're going to approach the development process. And they're also, in addition to being grounded in the community engagement results, they're also grounded in established city policy and market realities as we understand them today. And we're going to use these guidelines as a tool to ensure that implementation of the plan achieves the community's desired outcomes. And I won't read them to you. The report has these 8 guidelines and additional narrative text that you can read through at your leisure next Tuesday. Adrienne, next slide. I mentioned market realities because this phase of the project was also informed by a market study that was completed by our consultant. And the study examined the site's potential for housing, retail, and office space. And some key takeaways from that are that we feel very confident about the demand for housing here. So most of the development is planned to be housing. We think there's some demand for some new retail space, especially a grocery store. We don't expect to see much demand for office space. It's probably not surprising to most of you. And we do anticipate that construction of the site will, completion of the new park will boost demand for the site overall. And a final key takeaway is that we expect full development of the site will take quite a few years, likely over several market cycles to be entirely built out. Next slide, please, Adrienne. Now we can jump into the most exciting stuff. This is an illustrative view of what the development program could look like. It's not prescriptive. We're not saying this is exactly what it will look like, but this is a vision for what it could look like based on the development program that we describe in the development framework document. So here we're seeing mixed use buildings along with first floor retail lining Lake Street. And that is exciting because it closes that long time gap in the urban fabric of the commercial corridor here. And that gap was created by Kmart, of course. You'll see here in this drawing, the building heights are mostly in the 4 to 6 story range. That's due to our current market realities. The site is in the Transit 15 district, so it could allow 4 to 15 story buildings. And so actual heights will get figured out as development proposals come through. And especially for projects that are completed, farther in the future, market realities may be different and we could get taller buildings than this. The other thing to note here you see in the picture is the future MPRB park in the top corner there, that is going to be a 1.5 to 2 acre park. And I will go into more detail about the characteristics of these buildings here. So the development framework establishes the land use characteristics that we're going to pursue in development of the site. Overall, we're envisioning New Nicollet will include new market rate and affordable rental housing, some ownership housing, retail space, including a grocery store, and community serving space for both the nonprofit, and the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board. And we expect to break the site up into 6 parcels, which we will develop in phases. And the parcel numbers that you see here correspond to the planned phasing order. So I'll kind of walk you through each parcel. On parcels 1 and 2, down in the southeast corner, we expect to have mixed-use buildings with affordable apartments above some retail space along Lake Street for building 1. And then above park board and nonprofit space in building 2, and those spaces would be fronting the public park. On parcel 3, we expect to see a larger mixed-use development with some retail space as well as a grocery store at the corner of Lake and Nicollet. And this development should include both market rate and affordable apartments above that retail space. Then for parcel 4, we heard from the community that ownership housing is a priority. So we are planning for affordable for sale townhomes on parcel 4. Those are envisioned to line that mid-block promenade, so that biking and walking path between Nicollet and Blaisdell Avenue, kind of through the middle of the site. And we think the townhomes would be a great way to have eyes on the promenade and really activate that space and make it a comfortable and welcoming space. Parcel 5 is expected to be an affordable apartment project, and parcel 6 is a market rate apartment project with a small retail first floor component opposite the park. And the new park is critical to the entire development to create the main amenity to serve the community. And the city is working with MPRB to advance the creation of that park. The first phase of development will be in that southeast quadrant of the site, so parcels 1 and 2. And we expect that those 2 parcels could be developed as 1 or 2 projects, and will be open to either type of proposal for those sites. And we're hoping that phase 1, so parcels 1 and 2, and the park can reach completion at around the same time, trying to achieve a really strong sense of place from the very first phase of development and anchor our New Nicollet site with that first phase. Adrian, you can go to the next slide. So I'll stop here and make sure we have a lot of time for questions. We'll just quickly go over next steps in the project. So the draft development framework is going to be presented to the public at the open house next week on Tuesday, February 25th. And we're going to be gathering feedback from folks at that event, hoping to hear, did we miss anything? Do you like it? What do you think? And we'll also allow for some public comment period after the open house. And then we'll kind of wrap up and finalize the framework document. And that document will be presented to the city council in April. And we'll be looking for the council and mayor's approval of the development framework. So then after that milestone, we'll start preparing for an RFP for that first phase of development in the southeast quadrant. And we're expecting to release that RFP in the second half of this year. And I'll just note that as we move into this next phase of development, really focused on pursuing development on the site, there will continue to be opportunities for community engagement. And 2 of the probably most notable opportunities will be first, when we are releasing RFPs, we expect to come back to these community groups, especially Whittier Alliance, and present to you like, here's the development objectives. Here's what we're going to ask for from the development community for this parcel. Does this look right? It should be very closely aligned with what the framework document says for that area of the site. And then another opportunity in the future will be when a developer is selected and they are proposing their project and really like going through the land use process, that they would come and present their draft designs to the neighborhood group as well and get feedback on their plan for specific development projects. So I'll stop there. Oh, yes, thank you, Adrian. I forgot about my last slide here. So I mentioned the open house next week, Tuesday from 5 to 7. You will see this information plus more and have an opportunity to talk to staff, and we'll have food. Should be a good time. So I encourage you to come and encourage you to invite your friends. We also have an ongoing project website. It's listed here where you can find information about the project's current phase and past phases. And then we have a specific project email list that you're welcome to reach out to us with questions and comments, and we welcome that. So now we'll stop for questions.
Thank you. Great. I'll start off with a few questions here. For affordable housing, is the city looking at ways that it can help speed up that process? Because there's a lot of affordable housing projects that are on hold currently as money is being allocated. And so will there be a plan to push those forward to get the first phase of the development at least pushed forward, or how does that work out? That was my first question.
Could you restate the question for me? I just want to make sure, does the city have a plan to speed up the development of
Affordable housing and allowing affordable housing to move forward quicker and get the money to build it?
Sure. So when I'm not working on the New Nicollet project, I'll share that I am a senior project coordinator on the residential finance team in CPED. And what we do is work on affordable housing projects that have been awarded city funds. So the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund is one of the major sources of funding for affordable housing development. And certainly we expect that affordable projects at this site will utilize that resource. And that's a really important resource to make projects move faster and get to fully funding and get to construction in the city. So I think that will continue to be a very important resource at the New Nicollet site.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, and then I'll just pass it on to Christine there. She had her hand up first, so.
Okay.
So you mentioned something about a grocery store. So that must have been a big thing with the surveys you took.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know if you're aware of the Good Grocer.
Yes.
So that's not adequate, obviously.
There are a lot of grocery stores in this area already, and yes, it's kind of astounding to think there could be more. But as far as like the number of dollars that are being spent on groceries in this area by the population, it could support another grocery store.
So this would be like part of the building, like attached to the building?
Yes. Yep. So the first floor of a building that had apartments above it. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, we included a grocery store because it makes sense as a nice anchor for the site. It was a very high priority in community engagement. And you know, but we don't have a grocery store identified today. So that will be when we get to phase 3 or site 3 in the development, then the work will really start to pursue a grocery store, find a developer who has a relationship with a grocery store or can get a grocery store as the main tenant in this building. So
I was just going to ask that.
Yep.
What grocer were you thinking of putting in there? Because I don't want one of these high priced. Because like, okay, Lunds and Byerly's is a nice store, but little bit pricey.
Right. Yep. I hear ya. We don't, yeah.
So I was just wondering if you knew about Good Grocery, because they are considered a nonprofit and they're
Mm,
sometimes don't have a lot of customers.
okay, yeah.
We'll pass it on to Aaron.
Thank you both for coming tonight. And so Rebecca has moved on. And Adrian, are you with CPED too? Are you a
That's right.
CPEDer?
Yep.
Okay, so you guys now are carrying the torch. Um, so I'll be really direct. It's decades in the making. So the opening the street part is right. The park part is right. Um, this is the busiest intersection in the state of Minnesota. And so I guess my question about all the housing, traditionally commercial wants traffic volume and noise, and residential wants peace and quiet to be left alone. And there are people who do want to, reside on the 3rd through 15th floor of a busy building with retail or offices on the 1st or 2nd floor. But I think it's a little top heavy on housing. I also think it seems like we're tipping too much towards affordable or the nonprofit on what is a very prime piece of commercial real estate that would probably come into its own, particularly when eventually there's a trolley or some light rail in there. So I really want to urge you to think about the mix more. Also, the transportation piece of this, like so many of the construction projects we've seen up and down Lake Street and in other areas, um, they're really kind of pretending that parking is not important. The loading dock commercial, how do you move into a place? Where does your truck go? If you're running a grocery store, how do you haul in freight and haul out trash? Things like that don't seem to be in these plans. There's some prime examples of uptown, which, like Lake and Hennepin, where they just completely kludged on the construction. So now you have these big buildings that are, some of them work, parts of them work, parts of them don't work. And I really am hoping that we don't repeat these mistakes at this site. Uh, uh, Christine was talking about the supermarket. I mean, there was a supermarket there for decades, so that would be really cool. Aldi, like Aldi on 26th and Lindale right now, where they have the underground parking spot, that works really well. So that's an example of keeping some motor vehicle traffic going. And I'm not against bicycles, and I'm not against the idea that people don't need cars. But if you're young, if you're a parent with kids, if you are a senior citizen, um, you can't handle the mobility of a bus or a train or walking or a bicycle, then you will be in a vehicle of some kind. And I think the transportation mix in a lot of the city's plans right now are they're kind of screwy. And later on, I mean, I think one of the presentations that's going to happen at this meeting is probably kind of way out there. But
I will say,
anyway,
Aaron,
so just to wrap it up, so Nicollet reopening, busiest intersection around, still needs to be more diverse. It can't just be all affordable housing taking up that block. I guess that's what I got to say. Thanks.
yeah, I appreciate that. Just for parking and whatnot, that's the next phase. As an architect myself, I know that these things come and they will be coming as how you maneuver. I'm assuming there'll be some underground parking in a lot of these structures, but that's just like a next step. So just keep that in mind, Aaron, as you're looking at these are pretty conceptual and they're just basic framework diagrams that really represent what it could be, but it doesn't go into detail about parking, loading, etc. Which relates to actually one of the questions that I had before with Rebecca too, was why they straightened out that road, and I'm assuming, or that pedestrian pathway, and that was to help alleviate that problem of potentially with loading and unloading, et cetera. But I don't know if Linnea or Adrian, if you want to respond to that. Adrian, sorry about that.
That's good. Yeah, thanks for those comments. We definitely recognize that this site offers some challenges to potentially, you know, a large grocery store. And we actually have given that a lot of thought and have a lot of conversations with Public Works about how we can make sure that does work, but certainly it's something that will get worked out during these next steps. The other comment was about residential, wanting quiet. Yeah, I get that. It's not a location that everyone wants to live, but we do also know that housing is there's a big shortage and there's a big demand for housing. So we want to make sure that we provide it. And also, given the way that this site is, you know, the first phase of implementation will happen in that one corner. The west block will take a little bit longer to figure out, and the market could change by the time we get to that west block. So we are certainly not saying that there shouldn't be commercial, you know, especially along Nicollet. But given the market now, that's how we see it happening, but certainly that could change in the future.
Mhm.
And for phase one, the 1 and 2 buildings, are those just fully affordable or also market rate? I think that's what gets at Aaron's question of
Mhm.
having that variety is important to not overload with just affordability, I think is where Aaron was getting at.
Yeah. So the first phase, buildings 1 and 2, or if it's one project, it might be one building, will be affordable. And that's because we're super confident that we can get that project proposed, funded, built, you know, in a relatively fast timeline. That's what, you know, we're very good at that. We do that. We know that can come in wanting to like start delivering some real results in this area, and meet community needs, that's something that we can do right away. And we think that being successful, the park getting built will make a market rate project on parcel 3, where today it might be a little bit borderline on whether it's financially feasible, that, you know, one in the east side getting completed will really boost the feasibility of West Block market rate sites. So yes, the first phase is affordable. Future phases will include more variety, and we certainly are looking for a balanced mix of housing choice along the spectrum of options here. So not all affordable on all 6 parcels, but certainly want to meet community needs for affordable housing here.
Awesome. Thank you. Pass it on to Christine.
And I think this can maybe be our last
Yeah.
question, because I know you guys are here after work hours and maybe balancing
Mhm.
bedtimes, et cetera. So I want to be respectful of time.
Unless Aaron, you had something really quick you wanted to say, we'll let it happen, but
No, I
Christine, go ahead.
We could
All right, so, oh, sorry. All right, so you do have a little tiny bit of retail there. What kind of retail are you talking about? Is this the grocery, or is this just some other type of retail?
So grocery will be here in parcel 3. There will be small amounts of retail along, and I'm sorry, this graphic here, there shouldn't be retail along the Greenway. That one needs to be updated. Yeah, I mean, certainly we heard that, you know, opportunities for small businesses are important to this area. So there will be opportunities for that kind of commercial space in those developments as well.
So are you talking about like, okay, so all that's left as far as retail downtown is Target. So I'd like to see some of that replaced there.
Mm, mhm.
Like, I don't think you're gonna have a TJ Maxx down there or anything like that. But I'm thinking it would be nice to have a clothing store there, or maybe even a used
Mhm.
clothing store.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
something that will replace what we lost downtown.
Yeah, I think Christine, they're talking about small scale retail, like clothing, local shops, et cetera, similar to what we have in our neighborhood. I'm only just saying this to kind of move along to the next agenda item too, but there'll be other retail. It's not big box stores like TJ Maxx or Target or anything like that.
Can I just,
That's correct.
can I interject really quickly at the end here?
And
Okay, super quick. First off, Kmart was a booming business there. So the idea of just like a big, like a Target or a Kmart, should never be ruled out because that worked there and a big supermarket worked there. So I would really not rule those out. The other thing in terms of, accomplishing these things, like you could take these, our 4 or 5 buildings, and you could put them all on top of one parcel in the T15 and accomplish the number of units and still have the rest of the parcels available for other things. There's a lot of ways of looking at this. The other thing, and I know you guys, I appreciate you wanting to get something done, and I appreciate, closure and production and all that, but I've had land here for decades. Sherman got a huge amount of money from the city on this. The land is extremely valuable and it will come. And I would really focus on the opportunity, like the place that you set here, the table you set will draw what it needs to, and just don't put something right in the middle of it that chases away the opportunities that are going to come. People will come here. It's the busiest intersection in the state. It's a super ripe development opportunity. And just because you haven't heard the exact plan doesn't mean it's not out there. Keep up
For
the good
sure.
work.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah.
And thank you all for the presentation. That was really great. And we look forward to the next step and engagement and hearing about what happens at the open house and the feedback for all of it.
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you all.
Feel free to stick on or leave if you want, if you have to go somewhere, but we're gonna go on to the next agenda item, which is a Clinton Field, and just pretty much park update. So Anna's gonna take it from there.
Yeah, for sure. So we have just a quick update on Whittier Park and Clinton Field, which is that construction is going to be taking place in Whittier Park over the summer. Same thing in Clinton Field. So there, Clinton Field, there's going to be futsal fields developed. Whittier Park, they're going to be renovating the playground and field area. So kind of a bummer. Whittier Park is going to be, and the pool as well will be closed basically over the full summer up until early fall. Hoping that Clinton Field will be ready to rock in early fall as well. We are hoping to have a return of the East Street Cup futsal tournament at Clinton Field to inaugurate the futsal field. So more on that to come, hopefully. But those are just quick neighborhood park updates. And actually, while I'm at it, one last one. We are looking at the grand reopening of the 28th Street Top Lot, new name TBD. Still voting is still open. To be June 14th. So save the dates.
Awesome. Sweet. And now for one of our last agenda items here, we'll have our streets discussion here about the I-94 reconstruction possibility here. So we'll open up that presentation you received and then we'll have you take it from there. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, let me grab it, get us into slideshow mode.
Hey, so my name is Ethan Knight. I am not with R Streets, I'm with Twin Cities DSA, but we're within a I-94 campaign, the Boulevard Coalition. So I'm coming here to talk specifically about I-94 and the Whittier neighborhood. So you've seen a bunch of stuff out there that is on the boulevard, the land bridge. What are we going to do? The resolutions. This is on how it impacts you guys. So if you will go to the next one, so like Twin Cities DSA bases their transportation, their land use around really environmental justice. And there's 16 tenets of environmental justice. I've pulled out 2 of them here that really stand out for when talking with neighborhoods, which is demands that public policy be based on mutual respect and justice for all, free from any discrimination. And then it demands the right to participate as equal partners at every level of decision-making, including needs assessment, planning, implementation, enforcement, and evaluation. So what this means is that when we are talking about I-94, we care about, like, I live in South Uptown, like, I do use 94, but I am also cognizant of the fact that, like, it does impact me because I live in Minneapolis. It impacts you all because you live closer. You and all the other neighborhoods that are along I-94 have a say in this. So just a little history here. I-94 project kicked off in 2016. And originally it was from Broadway all the way to Highway 55 in St. Paul. And so you can see that Whittier was at one time one of the neighborhoods along this stretch. I-94 is at the end of its usable life. It has to be replaced. They have to tear it up. And when I say tear up, they're not just like going through taking the gravel out and resurfacing. They have to dig all the way down to dirt and then put out a new. So that is a intense process. It's very expensive. We're talking $2 to $3 billion. And so you have to reconstruct. After 2018, they parsed down where the study area is. So now it's only between Hiawatha and I think it's like just beyond Dale. It's right before downtown St. Now, it is a long-term, and their whole goal is to engage communities. We feel in the Boulevard Coalition, they are not doing an adequate job of that. They do not talk to you all because you're not along this corridor. I'm here to tell you that what they choose has a very, very important and direct impact on the Whittier. And part of the reason they parse this down is because you'll notice all the intersections in the study 1 area, and there's only one of those major intersections in the study 2 area. And that allows them to make much easier decisions when it comes to reducing the size of the freeway and also traffic.
So does that mean our area will not get rebuilt or what?
It will, but in another state.
Yeah.
But this is the crux of it. Thank you for leapfrogging the end. The crux of it is just because your corridor won't get rebuilt doesn't mean that you don't have a situation in your corridor that is very, very sensitive to whatever they choose. And so it is downwind of both the I-35W interchange with I-94 and the Lowry. The Lowry Tunnel, as outlined in the study 1, the phase 1 study and our street studies, that is the pinch. So you can't fit any more cars than 170,000 vehicles per day into that tunnel. The tunnel cannot be widened because the whole reason it's a curve like that is because there's 2 old churches there. If they widen it, they'd have to tear down those churches. And just to give you a capacity of the tunnel right now, it is 50% more capacity than or traffic than the Lincoln Tunnel in New York. So this is one of the most heavily trafficked tunnels in the entire. So only one of the alternatives that MnDOT has recommended. And that recommendation you probably have seen, they've been like, oh, we're getting rid of the at grade, we're getting rid of the widening. That is not an official recommendation. They did say that, and it has created far more headaches for them than wanted, because everybody's like, oh, this thing's dead, they've already decided. That's not true. Nothing's final until next year when they give a scoping document. Right now, we're technically in the like public review phase. You can make a comment. And so they have no build, which they are legally obligated to keep in there as a baseline to see how any other choices will change traffic flow. And then there's also maintenance fee, which is the same freeway, reduced freeway, which is 2 lanes, and then a managed lane like an easy pass, and then a reconfigured freeway, which is also functionally the same. So the streamlined traffic from the reduced freeway, and all of these have some sort of maintained lane, that has been shown in a study 1 from phase 1, that benefits places like Brooklyn Park and Woodbury the most. That induces traffic to go through your neighborhood, through I-94, on the I-35W. It's faster. People are willing to pay for those areas. They're not willing to pay when they live in Minneapolis and St. The other thing is, one of the reasons that they are saying that there cannot be an at-grade option is that there is going to be idling cars. Idling cars produce more fumes that can be, and more exhaust that can be breathed in by the neighbor than traffic that's moving. I disagree with that, but that's it. The problem is, you guys are now at the brunt end of having the bottleneck. These numbers up here are as they are right now, traffic as they are. It's a very crude assessment called a static traffic analysis. If there's any population increase in the metro area, especially in the suburbs, those numbers will increase, and it won't necessarily mean that there are more cars going through the tunnel. It's that the backup is long. So right now, your backup might be 3 to 6, and 6:30 to 9. It would end up being 6 to 10:30, and 2:30 to 7. That you have idling cars around your neighborhood, and also that goes for cars waiting to get onto 94, right? It from 35 down. This is an impact that they are not assessing in their traffic. And so, like, the pollution that does come from these roadways are tailpipe emissions, and this comes from like the MPCA, tailpipe emissions and then larger particulates like brake dust and tire. So the MPC, and I am by trade, I'm a combustion engineer. And I think sometimes within greenhouse gas emissions, people lose sight. Whenever you burn greenhouse gas emissions, everything that comes from it is not ideal. And like, we think of it as like climate change, but in reality, like, there are near-term direct impacts to the local neighborhoods that I think get lost when you start thinking about climate change. So, and to say, for anybody who says EVs won't fully solve the problem, or EVs will come and everything will be fine, hunky-dory, not necessarily the case. Stop and go traffic, you're gonna have a lot of brake dust. EVs are heavier, you're gonna have more tire dust. And beyond that, once a car reaches 25 miles an hour, you get a lot of noise. So EVs will be just as noisy as internal combustion. So if you'll go to the next one. And so this study actually came from the HERC, and this was data from the HERC. this is just cancer rates in the city. There's elevated cancer rates along I-94. Couple other areas are the industrial area in eastern Minneapolis along I-35, and then up in northeast around the train yard. So just being like around these areas elevates cancer risk, asthma, hospitalization rates, birth defects, and just negative health impacts from all the moves. So these are things that like we as advocates for the boulevard are trying to mitigate in these areas. And this has not been a priority for MnDOT. And for it to become a priority for MnDOT, we are trying to build a broader coalition with the neighbors. We do not want to just be a bunch of organizers that are saying that we're, doing this and not talking to people. Like, we want to let you know what these issues are, and for you all who want to live in Whittier, who are great neighbors in Whittier, to be able to act upon these this knowledge. So if you go to the next one. Yeah, and so like health risks associated with pollution, again, there's higher cancer risk and higher respiratory issues. And so you can see Whittier is smack dab in the middle of the two of those. So Twin Cities, DSA, we are very much people focused. We always want to center the people who are going to be impacted by what's ever going on. We have a much longer term vision than maybe other political entities or other agencies, and we want, like, our goal is to build a Minnesota and a society that works for everyone, that isn't ignoring people because somebody from Woodbury needs to get to somebody else. And so far we have been working on Riff Depot, shut down the Smith Foundry, Herc, and I-94. Those are 4 big campaigns. So the things that you guys can do, call your elected. Scott Dibble has been great on this. Katie Jones, I think Katie Jones is this area. No, okay.
It's Aisha Gomez.
Oh, Aisha Gomez. Okay, I'm not sure if stay right. Yes. Yeah. So I have not heard from Aisha Gomez. If you can get a hold of Aisha Gomez. Yeah, and Fata has been fantastic. He's been a leader on this. And then there is a community letter that has been starting to go around. We asked the Whittier Alliance, obviously, would they be willing to sign on, and then individually you can sign as well. And the crux of this is pretty much everybody right now. Our ask is to get a longer term study done, which takes into account the tunnel, your area, how that traffic that ends up on 35W going right past that new Nicollet intersection that's about to be built, and that green area. So these things are going to be studied, but only if we can get MnDOT to continue studying the at-grade option. And that is the goal of many elected representatives right now. The St. Paul neighborhoods, Seward and Cedar Riverside, and the governor has been oddly silent on this. MnDOT has really stuck their heels in the ground and said, well, this isn't going to be very good for cars, and therefore we shouldn't do it, which is very frustrating for us and the neighbors who want to who live along.
And yeah, with that, I'll open it up for.
Yay.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
I'll open it up for questions. There's a clap from Aaron. That's great.
So, I mean, one of the several things, the interstate system kind of came into place after World War II. and some of the generals who became a president, I think it was Eisenhower, remarked that the strategic value of a national road network where you could move mass quantities of people and things was relevant to national security. And some of the below grade stuff plays into that, but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say that if you go to on grade, so does that mean there's going to be intersections and all the traffic is going to stop at the intersections? I mean, how do you cross an on grade interstate?
Yeah, well, it's not an interstate. It would be a local road.
So it would be on, so, I mean, so if you're take 94 to grade and you're going south on Vandalia or south on Chicago Avenue, how do you cross it?
It would be like any other larger thoroughfare in the city.
So it would be below grade? The interstate
No.
would still,
It would be, have you been on Snelling?
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be Snelling.
So there'd be a stoplight at 94 or 94 would still go underneath Snelling?
No, there would be no 94. There wouldn't be a freeway.
Like it would be the equivalent of.
Yeah, it would be the equivalent of Snelling.
The freeway would be gone. It'd be just a normal road. That's the whole point,
With stoplights.
with stoplights, intersections, et cetera. So,
Isn't part of the plan to divert
Oh,
94
slow traffic.
to divert 94 entirely around the city? So there's still a 94, but it's just the boulevard between the two cities.
Yeah, so so I-94 is actually not part of the official interstate system. That is 690. I-94 is, so theoretically, the capacity, the 494 to 694 have the capacity, and the other roads have the capacity to hold that traffic. The majority of the traffic that goes on I-94, based on cell data, is between Minneapolis and St. Paul. Mostly it's between St. Paul and St. Paul. This would open up I tried to focus only on Whittier. I'm happy to answer any other questions. But the most of the reason that we want a boulevard is so because it opens up so much land. So now traffic trips that would have taken a mile, 2 miles in a vehicle can be a walking trip or a short bus trip. And plus it solves an issue with St. Paul that they have very, very little taxable land. And this would return a significant portion of taxable land to St. Paul and Minneapolis.
I have a kind of I have a question. Are you able to explain sort of the decision-making hierarchy? Because I have a little bit of trouble, especially I have a sense that MnDOT is very much in control of this process. And I don't know to what extent my lobbying my state representative or my state senator makes a difference.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way this works is theoretically, if MnDOT wants to say, we don't care about any of these people, we don't care about Minneapolis and St. Paul, they can't. There's nothing to stop. What's stopping them is the political expediency of the commissioner of MnDOT to get anything through, the headaches that they'll have to go through in the future. And then on top of it, it will at points, these people are going to have to do something called municipal consent, not with I-94, but with other projects. And any goodwill that MnDOT has is slowly being lost. And this is actually true from both political parties. So people up north in rural Minnesota are very frustrated with MnDOT as well. It just makes life hard. The second thing is there are bills currently being passed, currently being pushed in both the House and the Senate. A bunch are by Fata and Dibble, to simply, for instance, hold a hold a vote at these meetings of elected representatives along the corridor. These, right now, they have these meetings and pretty much all of the elected representatives say, please keep the act rate in there and please study it more, which is what, right now, that letter that I'm asking, like, that's all that we're asking for. And the MnDOT's saying no to. So there's a real discrepancy between the people this impacts, because like Woodbury is not, the Woodbury mayor is not on this panel. There is a real discrepancy between elected representatives and MnDOT, and what you can ask is, can you support this bill? Can you be a co-sponsor? And the more pressure that arises, the more the governor, for instance, will have to step in at some point and say so. The governor is also very deferential to his agencies, which is personal opinion, very bad politics, but also very problematic when it comes to working with constituents and other.
Awesome. I'm gonna stop it there unless somebody really has a question they want to ask. Or a comment. All right, with that, we'll stop it there. And we will stop the recording at this point and then just do a final general announcement. So real quick, you just stop. Recording.
Oh, I don't know, we can keep recording, who cares?
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Yeah.
Let me share the screen again then.
Cool. Yeah, I think the announcements that we have, so I briefly mentioned, we're still looking for a new name for the 28th Street Tot Lot. If you would like to vote, there are options for that. You do it in the link, the agenda link, and we'll send it out after this as well. And then